You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.
Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
We're starting things over. We're starting things a little bit earlier today because you have some stuff going on tonight. I'm not going to be able to be live tonight, so we're live in the morning. And as you can see, we forgot to turn the microphone on, but that's okay. We are going to a couple of developments here happened in the last couple of days that I don't see anyone else going out and covering in the news. And I'm shocked with some of the LinkedIn people out there. I know we're all busy, that this didn't go around the world 3 times already on LinkedIn, in 10 minutes. So we are going to be giving you raw information here, right? We got this story came across on my Google alerts, and I'll give them credit where credit's due. Bloomberg Law did a story on this, and with a link to the actual settlement, which I have not been able to find anywhere else out there. And What happens in the safety industry when you have less information, where you have all these information filters out there, you get a lot of message sent and message received type situations. When the message sent is this and the message received is this, and always in the favor of the people who don't want to comply with OSHA regulations, OSHA standards, OSHA anything, whether or they inadvertently, they're well-meaning a lot of time. Most of the time, people are well-meaning, where we're going to interpret things in an advantageous way to them in the moment. So we all know that based on all of our discussions here over the last, and it's going on 300 episodes, that we have all the different shenanigans and everything else that go on out there with stuff, what the people you got to deal with, all of the nonsense, gaslighting, you name it, we got to deal with it here in the safety industry. How people interpret things. So, for example, my biggest fear is with this is that it's going to be misinterpreted. For example, how many times have I had discussions with commercial and residential roofers over the last 5 years that they don't have to wear hard hats? Because, right? And they point to an OSHA, and they're emphatic about it. They're very convincing, at least in their own mind, to their own people. And then, that goes to leadership issues, right? Where they're able to influence people, that they don't have to wear hard hats. And then you get into it. Well, you don't have to wear, and they hang their head on a letter of interpretation. What the letter actually says is you don't have to wear hard hats if, and I have my broadcast assistant here handing me a note. Okay, great. All right, thank you. That was an important one. Yes, we do have staff in the background. So we have, let me get back up here. So you have folks out there once you read the letter of interpretation from OSHA, it says you don't have to wear hard hats if you eliminate all overhead hazards. And then you start to point out to them, well, you have this overhead hazard, this overhead hazard, this overhead hazard. Oh, and by the way, one of the new hazards to the head that has been recognized over the last few years is same level falls, where the hard hat, when you fall, the hard hat falls off and you hit your head. So I don't think you're going to eliminate all of those. And based on your housekeeping issues, I don't think that you're going to eliminate that, and blah, blah, blah. And you go on and on. So therefore, put on your hard hat. We've had these discussions, and they've been heated, and they don't like them. When we're working for the GC, this is what the rules are. And as we know, basically, OSHA regulations require that, essentially. When they're for the fall protection hazard is one of them, and all different types of stuff. Fall protection standard, all different types of stuff on hard hats. Now, this is going to be one of those, because what happened was the National Chimney Sweep Guild, back in 2017 and 2016, when they were updating the walking and working surfaces standard for the general industry, they put everything out for comment, meaning OSHA. And people commented, and they were the ones who commented, and they had some pretty legitimate comments. Basically, the gist of them are, and I'm going to draw a couple of inferences here based on my experience with this industry, is, hey, we're going to be we're hired to do a job. We're getting paid usually less than $1,000, right, for these jobs as a chimney sweep. Most of the work is done from the ground, meaning from the inside of the chimney in this house, right? And our work on the roof is incidental. Why are we going to be starting to install anchorage points and doing all this other stuff for what amounts essentially as an inspection in a lot of cases, or very incidental work on the roof? It's really not feasible, and you can understand that. And they said the other thing is this: our job is to work on chimneys. If we have to start drilling in stuff in the roof, right, now we're not chimney people anymore. Now we are roof people, and now we're liable for any quote-unquote damages, whatever you want to call them, that we have or as a result of the work. So what are we going to do here? And OSHA and them, they have been battling this out since, here, I have the date. It was since April 8th. It was reported, the first story, April 18th, 2017. So they've been going through this for over 6.5 years, essentially, on this. So all through the previous administration, and so much from the previous administration getting bad raps on OSHA stuff because they actually fought this for how many years? I don't know how diligently, but there was litigation here. And this deal came out. It was reported today is Wednesday, December 6th. So this was reported yesterday by Bloomberg Law, and with a link to the case, we're going to go through it. Now, what's my point? Now, this ruling has to specifically deal with anchorage points, right? Was one of the things. And it has some other things too we're going to go through. And so what they've said is that the chimney companies have to use a qualified person or a competent person and need to can attach alternative means of anchorage points. For example, a tree, a vehicle, and things of that nature, as long as it's done under the direction of a competent or qualified person. Great. Phenomenal. All right. That's what it is. How do you think that's going to be interpreted? And how's your work crew going to interpret it? Your work crew this is going to get filtered down. Maybe it'll hit some trade group, maybe on LinkedIn or whatever. Hey, it's not fair that this other industry has gotten completely exempt from this. Because that's what it is. Message sent, message received. Or the other one. I'm working for a chimney sweep company, therefore I don't have to have anything because we want a settlement from OSHA. That's how it gets received. So it's very important if you are a safety professional or another person involved in this stuff that you or training that you really go into what is going on with this thing. Don't consider it, you want to do something great, share this video where we're going to go through it. This way you don't have to. You can say some guy from Safety Wars went and shared this with me, and we could get him on the phone at 845-269-5772, or we could go and give him an email at jim@safetywars.com and visit us on all of our wonderful social media platforms on there as Safety Wars or me, Jim Posel. My name is here. I am the Safety Shock Jock. So, okay, I self-identified, but I've been called that, right? On there, right? What is a shock jock? Someone who makes you, shocks you into, and makes you think. So that's basically it. So without any, let's go into a commercial break and right here, and then we're going to get started because I got to do share screen and everything else, right?
Have you listened or watched the Safety War Show? It does stream live on the radio and on the streamer-emers that we have. So if you have not taken a listen to Jim Posel and what the hell he's doing every evening with Safety Wars, I would strongly encourage you to take a view or take a listen, whichever option is available for you, and take a listen to what the hell he has going on. It will take some deep dives and some information that you might be interested in.
Well, I'm not going to be little here. I'm going to be the same size. But we're going to go through, can we do it equal? Yes, we can. We can do it equal here. Again, this is a link to the case from, the link was from Bloomberg Law. And here, come on, where is it? There it is. Okay. So National Chimney Sweep Guild. This is in the United States Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit. National Chimney Sweep Guild et al., meaning that there were several other petitioners, and docket number 17-1087 versus OSHA. And here we have, it's a consent to motion to dismiss. Attorneys could tell you what that means. But basically, they have to, my understanding of the law is that the settlement is reached by both parties, and then it has to be approved by a judge somewhere on here. And now this some of the history behind the court under the settlement and everything else. They always give a nice history here. Again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not playing one on TV or the radio. The court entered right on September 12, 2017, at the request of the parties and the Ned Stevens petitioners, whose petitions were consolidated with NCSG's and earlier resolved. The court entered an order suspending the briefing in this matter pending further court order of the court going on. And the last status report advised the court that the parties had negotiated a comprehensive settlement addressing all issues before the court. And going on here. And this was all dated here, through here, and from the council. By the way, who's the attorney here? Lawrence P. Halprin, Keller and Heckman. Counsel for, why does that name sound so familiar? Is that, hold on. Hold on. Yes, Keller and Heckman. I'll give another podcast and I know I go off subject there occasionally. So Keller and Heckman, they have their own podcast, which I'm going to really recommend, which is OSHA 3030 podcast with Keller and Heckman. This gentleman is often on the air. I believe he's a co-host. Manish Rath is listed as the host here. So they're probably going to cover this case and right, and I'll let you know about it here. And all forward ground, right. So the Secretary and NCSG stipulated and agree as follows. National Chimney Sweep Guild. Stipulation and settlement agreement incorporated by the reference attached. Going on 15 days. And OSHA agrees that they're going to send this out. NCSG will conduct outreach to chimney service industry and encourage them to adopt fall protection practices described in the settlement agreement, document those practices, and communicate these practices to all their employees who perform covered tasks. The objective of having and communicating documented fall protection practices is to enable the employees at the site being inspected, even if not owners or supervisors, to advise CSHOs of their fall protection practices so appropriate inspection can be conducted without delay. OSHA shall provide the chimney service industry employers until December 1st, 2024 to implement this settlement agreement. Employers who are in the process of implementing this settlement agreement must comply with the requirements of 29 CFR 1910.28, 29, and 140. Those are all general industry. And OSHA shall distribute this agreement. So here is the settlement agreement. And item 1A is, hey, this applies to the chimney service industry. And no, basically that's it. They do not apply and may not be used for any work and performed by an employer outside the chimney service industry. They do not apply to and may not be used for construction activities. So this is another catch point that we're going to have. Companies and people are going to say, well, this applies to the construction industry. And then my first question, when I get this thing back, I said, well, did you have the OSHA outreach course? Yes. Well, then you know the difference, or they should have pointed out the difference between general industry and construction. No, they didn't. I don't know what you're talking about. It turns out that they bought their things on the street, or they used an online program where they didn't explain that exactly like they're supposed to. The agreement identifies fall protection options that will be deemed compliant and going on. Now, this is the two big things, and we're going to go into the two examples that they give. The service industry shall be subject to the fall protection requirements under general industry, 1910.28, 1910.29, 1910.140 as written. The anchorages identified in appendices A and B, right, selected and used by or under the supervision of a competent person per the specific criteria set forth in the relevant appendix will be deemed to satisfy. There are two appendices here that we're going to talk about. The anchorages identified in appendices A and B selected by or under the direction of a qualified person in accordance with the relevant appendix and used by under the supervision of a qualified person or a competent person in accordance with the relevant appendix, which has part of the complete fall protection, maintain a safety factor of at least 2. Right, so safety industry, you have a safety factor of at least 2 in many situations. Will be deemed to satisfy 1910-140 C13-2. OSHA shall ensure that no citation for failure to comply with the fall protection requirements, what I just mentioned, shall be issued if and when a chimney service industry employer is in compliance with terms of this agreement applicable to the activity at the work site. Okay, so for example, so they give 2 examples here. A worker using travel restraint system consisting of a harness attached by a carabiner to a rope grab with a vertical lifeline that is threaded through the rope grab, run over the peak of the roof and down the other side of the roof to a tree and attach to the tree with an appropriate knot, except for the tree. And again, talk about big arguments, talk about what the appropriate knot is. Ooh, I hit a button. Pardon me, right? Except for the tree and the knot, all individual components selected by the sweep to assemble the travel restraint system meet the technical specifications in the 1910-140 and are being used with any restrictions and specifications required by the manufacturer. Now, 1 and 2 now start to differ slightly. In that situation, the tree that is serving as an anchor meets all criteria in Appendix A through Section 3, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. In that situation, a competent person is authorized to select the individual components, assemble and install the travel restraint system, and to use or supervise its use to perform the covered tasks. Rope grab means a deceleration device for travels. Okay, now, so, example 2. All right. Says the same thing, essentially, except a qualified person. Right, could do the same thing. And going on, okay, here we have definitions. We have note number 3. The initial installation of a chimney cap, which OSHA views as a construction activity. Remember, now you got to comply with the construction standard, is deemed to fall within the definition of covered tasks for purposes of this agreement only. So this agreement includes the installation of a cap, right? The removal and replacement of an existing chimney cap may be part of either Section 1910.28 assessment or a covered task, depending on the circumstances. The following explanatory material going on and different definitions. Employers qualifying to operate under this settlement agreement. Each employer electing to operate under this settlement agreement shall, before commencing activities under this settlement agreement, ensure it has documented its safety program for rooftop work. That means you give someone like me a call to write the plan for you, right? Identified in its safety program for rooftop work, the covered tasks that will be performed by its employees and any restrictions on the covered tasks that may be performed by a particular employee. Identified in the safety program for rooftop work, the fall protection options described below that will be installed and utilized by its employees, and any restrictions in the fall protection options, right? Pardon me. No. So use and any restrictions in the fall protection options that may be installed or utilized by a particular employee. Obtained and provided its employees with the equipment necessary to perform the covered tasks and to install and utilize the fall protection options that the employer has chosen to include in its safety program for rooftop work. Consistent with any restrictions placed on the covered tasks performed or fall protection options installed or used by and going on. provided its employees with training necessary to perform covered tasks and implement fall protection options that the employer has chosen. Again, 845-269-5772. I'll give you that training. Each employer electing to operate under the settlement agreement shall ensure their qualified persons, competent persons, and employees implement the procedures. Now, that includes something on here that you got to do coming up here. Safety program requirements. So, you have to have, and Section A, we're in Roman numeral 4, safety program for rooftop things. You have to have a written program. You have to have training in that program. And blah, 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 right? And comprehensive training program. It goes through all of the requirements for a training program. So basically, you have to document training. All training must comply with 29 CFR 1910.30, general industry. All required training must also be provided to an employee before that employee performs or supervises work using any fall protection option identified in Appendix A or B of this agreement. And it has to be, the comprehensive training program must be developed and conducted by a qualified person. And the program must include a written certification by a qualified person that the program complies with this agreement. So if you are giving training to these folks, you better make damn sure that you are a qualified person. And how do we make sure that that happens? A qualified person means a person who, by possession of a recognized degree, certificate, or professional standing, or who, by extensive knowledge, training, and experience, has successfully demonstrated the ability to solve and resolve problems relating to the subject matter, the work, the project, or the project within the scope of this agreement. What is a competent person? It means a person who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in any fall protection and any personal fall protection system or any component of it used under this agreement, as well as their application and uses with related equipment, and who has authorization to take prompt corrective action to eliminate identified hazards. Now, I have, and let me cover up the client name here. We've developed this to help you identify your competent person and what their duties are and to assign them. It's got to be in writing, guys. If it's not in writing, bad things happen when this one, especially if you're in a state like New York, because then guess who becomes the competent person? The owner or the foreman, depending on, or the supervisor, and things pretty much go to Guvno after that. Okay, each employer electing blah, blah, blah. We already mentioned this. Safety program requirements, right? You have to have it, the program and everything done by a qualified person, qualified individual. And it gives you the outline. This is all pretty standard fall protection stuff. The C, the safety program for rooftop work must include the following requirements for covered tasks. It has to have what? A written fall protection plan based on a hazard assessment. And a competent person has to do a hazard assessment. Again, this has to be done in writing here. Every job, I imagine this would be able to take, could be done on a checklist. Not that we're big fans of checklists here, because they're very confining and they're only focused on certain things. But probably could do on a checklist or a field plan that we can help you generate. Going on in here, at least one of the workers installing or supervising the installation of fall protection must be a competent person. At least one of the workers using or supervising the use of fall protection system must be a competent person. So, competent person has to be there, either supervising or using. A qualified person must design any fall protection system used under this agreement that is not installed and used per the specifications in this agreement, or installed and used in a manner for which the system was designed. The same individual may be both a competent and qualified person. The circumstances require the participation of a competent and qualified person. That requirement is satisfied by one individual who meets the requirements of both definitions. So you can be both. Work on covered tasks. So you have to have it, what the covered tasks are with this. You have to have weather, and you also weather conditions that you're allowed to work under, what your control steps are, you have to have a prompt rescue with this. Now, this is the important thing. Let me see if I could zoom in on this. How does this look? All right. We're going to zoom in on this one. Here. Employers shall ensure unannounced safety spot checks are performed and documented. Each worker engaged in covered tasks under this agreement shall be spot checked for compliance with this agreement a minimum of once per year. So what does that mean? That means that you better, we have these things called smartphones, right? You might have heard of them. And smartphones, right? You might have heard of smartphones. And smartphones have what is called a video recording feature on it. And they also have body cameras, which all of my people have body cameras because we have issues with people threatening our lives and everything on sites. So, yes. And then I never threatened his life. Oh, yeah. Yes, again. Employer enforcement investigations and retraining. Right? So you have to have spot checks. I would recommend that they're videotaped. Some attorneys would say no, but at least videotape them, saying to prove that you were there. Take photos, paperwork, something. Often, as an attorney recently told me, he said, look, videotaping shit could go both ways, Jimmy. And that's the way it is. I said, oh, okay, I can see where it could go both ways. So just think of, you don't want this to be like the TikTok. And then often what happens is when you videotape things always end up on TikTok, Instagram, or somewhere else. And then, before you know it, you have an issue. Employers shall take immediate action to correct any observed or reported violations in this agreement and retrain employees as required. All retraining shall be documented. Employers shall conduct investigations into any observed or reported incidents or near misses that involve falls from height. This investigation analysis of causal factors shall be completed within 2 weeks of the incident. Employers must implement appropriate changes if necessary to prevent similar incidents in the future and must be documented and must document such changes. Now, assessments under this. Pursuant to 1910.28, with one exception, fall protection is not required when employees are inspecting, investigating, or assessing workplace conditions or work to be performed prior to the start of rooftop work, or 2, conducting a good faith inspection, investigation, or assessment of workplace conditions and the rooftop work that was performed to confirm all rooftop work has been completed. So what does this mean? Before you start the work, you do an inspection, okay, do an assessment, blah, 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 assessment of workplace conditions. And number 2, to make sure the work was done properly, right? The exception is that the employees must use any fall protection system or equipment meeting the requirements of 1910.29 that has been installed, and that has been installed, and that is available and adequate for workers to use for pre-work and post-work assessments. So let's say that you go up there, they already have a system set in place. You got to use it. Okay, the following rooftop activities fall within the scope of 1910.28 assessment. Inspecting flashing shingles, rooftop vents, and chimneys, which includes removing a chimney cap with a screwdriver or screw gun to allow inspection of the crown and inside the chimney cap and flue with the aid of a flashlight and or a camera, and then replacing the chimney cap with a screwdriver or screw gun while on the roof. Incidental chimney cleaning activities, such as reef removal of creosote, may also be considered part of the section 1910.28A2 assessment for purposes of this agreement. So everybody got something out of this agreement, for this what I get here. Question is, will the worker get that? Will this be good for the worker? Fall protect preference for ground level work. Of course, ground level work, if you can do anything ground level, that would be great. With that, then you can't fall from height. And and if there's anything installed already, you got to use it if it's meets the requirements. When fall protection is required, employees performing covered tasks under this agreement shall be protected from falls by any of the fall options described in paragraphs 1 through 4 below, which is not, remember, listen closely, which is not infeasible and does not create a greater hazard pursuant to OSHA Safety and Health Review Commission case law, and may use a combination of these options. A fall protection aid may be used by an employee to prevent a fall while traveling to or from a covered task, or while setting up and removing the fall protection option that will be used while performing the covered task. 1. Pardon me. A travel restraint system that complies with the requirements in Appendix A of this agreement and is otherwise subject to 29 CFR 1910.140. A personal fall arrest system that meets the requirements in Appendix B of this agreement and is otherwise subject to 29 CFR 1910.140. 3. Working from an aerial work platform that complies with 29 CFR 1910.67. Working from portable ladders where the physical conditions at the work site permit. The use of ladders will be in compliance with 29 CFR 1910.23. Note, employers shall ensure that employees move ladders from location to location around the work site as often as necessary to safely assess the areas where work is to be performed. In other words, you don't put it on one piece of the roof and then leave it there, and the roof is like 200 foot long. Don't think that happens? I guess I've seen that, right? And additions, modifications, and updates to the fall protection options described in paragraphs 1 through 4 above that we just read that are designed to make them safer or more efficient while providing substantially equivalent protection may be requested by NCSG, but are permitted only after consultation with the OSHA National Office, Directorate of Enforcement Programs, and receipt of written approval from OSHA. Now, I recently had a client have an issue because they were at a trade group, and the trade group said that they don't have to have SDSs because they're in an exempt industry for whatever exemptions and everything else. OSHA had a different point of view on that. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, you do have to have SDSs. So be careful here with this paragraph here. If you're going to deviate from these 4 things, you have to ask for a consultation from OSHA on that. And it has to be in writing, written approval, meaning that you're going to have likely, I'm not an attorney, but my understanding is an assistant area director or someone who's like officially designated to speak for OSHA. Not necessarily, I'm not saying anything against them, the compliance safety experts and the compliance officers and everything else. Right. My understanding is that you don't have to, that they are not really allowed to make decisions on policy, official policy. However, field conditions, they are given some leeway and things of that nature, which they pretty much, my experience, they use pretty well. I mean, pretty judiciously. And they're very, they tend to be reasonable people with this stuff. But anything official, right, according to this agreement, you got to get a consultation, and you can usually call for an on-site consultation from OSHA with that, right? And they like doing that. Believe me, they like helping you. They like helping people. They don't want to go out there and start writing fines and citations. They will want to help people, and you're showing good faith effort here. So, exception to the fall protection requirement for chimney and chimney cap insulation only. So this is only for chimney caps. If by all means of performing chimney sweeping or installation chimney caps under sections 6A, B, and C above are infeasible or create a hazard greater pursuant to OSHA Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission case law. Meaning you cannot say, you know what, that's infeasible. Okay, it's infeasible, Break out the case law book. Break out the precedent with this. Show me where it's infeasible. It can't be some guy like with the COVID issue on TikTok or Instagram saying this X, Y, and Z. The employer may allow employees to enter onto a roof to perform those tasks without fall protection when the following conditions are met. 1. A competent person has determined by visual inspection that the work surface is in good condition and capable of supporting the employee. Employees shall not enter into any portion of a roof where the roof pitch is greater than 4 in 12. Employees shall keep their centers of gravity low whenever walking on or working from the roof, and meaning you're going to be on your hands and knees, which is the old way of doing things. BO way, before OSHA way. Employees shall take an access path that minimizes time spent within 6 feet of the edge of the roof. That's the whole thing with moving the ladder around. Appendices. Now, what I would do with this, if I was going to go, because OSHA doesn't like to contradict itself usually, if I was going to call for an on-site consultation, even in the construction industry, I would try to use this document here. Say, look, you're allowing this, this, and this, and blah, blah, blah. Can we get a decision on this? This might be a good letter of interpretation, right? Here, right? If someone wants to, not going to be me, but if someone wants to write a letter under a letter of interpretation under OSHA, this might be a good one that you could do, because I could see this application and what they're requesting here as being applied to other roof work, all right, with this. But like I said, it would be nice if you get something in writing. Not nice, it's like you should get something in writing with this stuff. All right, so this is using a travel restraint system. Travel restraint system is designed to use to prevent an employee from going over the edge of a walking and working surface rather than arresting a fall after going over the edge. A travel restraint system should not be relied upon to arrest a fall because it is not designed to handle the potential forces generated in a free fall. All right? Remember, the anchorage point on a travel restraint system is what? 3,000 pounds usually, which is not 5,000, right? With that. So that's why they have this, and that's my letter of interpretation. A travel restraint system generally consists of an assembly of components: anchorage connector, lanyard, a center descent device, lifeline, or body support that an employer uses to eliminate the possibility of an employee going over the edge of a walking and working surface. Okay, it looks like we're going to go over time here. Well, let's see. Here for the Safety FM broadcast. Except as provided in this agreement, use of a travel restraint system shall be subject to all applicable conditions. And a qualified person may, in the exercise of his or her knowledge, training, and or different experience, determine that some of the criteria listed below may be performed. So here we have a chimney-based travel restraint system. While it may be set up in a variety of ways, our chimney-based travel restraint system generally means a combination of line tightly wrapped around a chimney to which a lanyard and body support, meaning a belt or a harness. Again, I don't ever recommend a belt for anything, because it often then turns into a fall protection use. So I always recommend harness with that. But, I can just see people out there with a old-fashioned body belt with this, and then God forbid, you know what you're going to. I hate to even imagine what you're going to get. So I would suggest just a harness with this, with appropriate D-rings and everything else. I do not do body belts, period. Conditions for use. A competent person must determine that the chimney is suitable for this purpose and that the travel restraint system can be safely attached to the chimney. A non-enclosed chimney or vent, aka a manufactured chimney or vent with no chase, is not suitable for this purpose. Now, here's something else. What are the conditions of these things? And this goes into this. What are the conditions? Have you ever seen some of these chimneys? They haven't been serviced in years, especially on residential dwellings. I've had them where we've had to completely point chimneys on commercial buildings. I've seen houses and I've spoken to roofers where the freaking chimney, part of their job, they go up there to do the roof. They said, look, we can't leave this chimney the way it is. So will that chimney be able to withstand an anchorage point of 5,000 pounds? I don't know. Chimney may not be within 6 feet of the cable edge of the roof. Again, why? Because of a swing fall, number one. And number two, you're putting people at work, at risk. The restraint line shall be padded where they touch angled, sharp, or rough surfaces. Now, if you don't believe me on this, so you go to YouTube and you have fall protection over a sharp edge, and there's a video put out by a manufacturer that shows what happens when a fall protection rope goes over a sharp edge. It's a bad situation. Approved ground-based anchorages. Now, this would be where I would, if I was another roofing contractor, I would probably write to OSHA and ask about this to get a letter of interpretation. It's like begging for a letter of interpretation here. The following objects may be used as single anchorage for a travel restraint system when the listed requirements are met. 1. A mature tree that, based on visual inspection prior to use, meets the following requirements. 1. A. The tree has a trunk that appears to be at least 6.5 inches in diameter. B. The tree shall be inspected prior to use by striking the trunk with a rubber mallet in at least 3 locations to determine if the inside of the tree is solid. C. The tree is substantially in line with and on the opposite side of the roof from the work being performed. I would think like a 60-degree thing is probably what I would do. Then 60 degrees. Why? Because that's where all the other anchorage points are designed as in the industry. The rope and or webbing between the tree and the eaves is at as shallow an angle as possible to minimize the risk of anchorage sling slippage and to maintain a lateral load on the trunk. The anchor sling is installed as low as to the ground as possible. It's secure because lower is less. Lower means less force. Less leverage on the root system. It does not slide up on the trunk. If nails and or screws are used to secure the slings, they shall be placed above the sling, not through the sling. Again, how many times do you see on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok, you get people nailing ropes to the roofs? That's none, and say, well, that's fall protection. Yeah, baloney. And it says a minimum 3. If necessary, the rope/webbing shall be protected from any visible contact with tree sap. The tree trunk shall be substantially free of visible fungus, rot, cracks, splits, or decay. And it goes on and on and on and on here with this. Again, they said you could use it. This is along the old joke, right? Yeah, you could go swimming, right? But don't go near the water, sort of thing. That's what OSHA has done here with this agreement. Now, I can see all different types of abuse, and it goes up to the letter P here with this, right? And I would say that I think it would behoove you, if you are a confident person or a qualified person and you want to go for use this, you should probably get credentials from an arborist society or arborist organization on here. A structural member, such as a wooden structure or metal structure that is based upon visual inspection prior to use, meets the following requirements. 1, a wooden structure that is made from 4x4 lumber, which is actually 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches, or equivalent, e.g. 2 2x4 lumber joined from the form of 4x4 lumber. Or, free of rot or cracks or decay, substantially in line with and on the opposite side of the roof from the work being performed. Right? A metal structure that is solidly connected goes on and on. Now, you can look this up. A vehicle that, based on visual inspection prior to use, meets the following. And you know what? I better. Hold on. because I'm going to lose this here. All right. A vehicle. Now, this is what we always hear. Can you connect to a vehicle? Yeah, you can. But now we have some standards that we can do that OSHA has issued. A vehicle that, based upon visual inspection prior to use, meets the following requirements. Has a gross vehicle weight of at least 4,000 pounds. So your used Yugo from the 80s probably doesn't meet this, or a Volkswagen Beetle. The vehicle shall be parked on a clean, dry, stable surface, not on ice, right? The vehicle shall be in line with and on the opposite side of the roof from the work being performed, with the restraint line in line with the length of the vehicle, right? A restraint line shall not cross the vehicle travel ways. A vehicle shall be parked with the ignition off. A vehicle with an automatic transmission shall be in park. A vehicle with a manual transmission, which they still make, by the way, shall be in gear. The vehicle shall have a parking brake set, wheels shock to restrain movement, and the vehicle in both directions. So what does wheels shock mean? You go out and you get the real wheel shocks, not like the brick that you found on the side of the road. The keys to the vehicle shall remain with the worker performing the roof. This is like a lockout tagout situation. My question is this: what happens if you have duplicate keys? A tag shall be placed near the ignition warning that a vehicle is not to be moved. The restraint line shall be connected to the approved connection points on the vehicle. Okay, try to figure that out. All right. And shall be padded when they touch angled, sharp, or rough surfaces. The only approved connection points that are the following. 1. Around wheels. 2. Through openings and rims. B. Pillar. A. Frame. And 5. Axle. 4 frame, 5 axles. So let's go through that again. Around the wheels, through the openings in the rims, through a B pillar, a frame, or the axles. All right, that's what it has to be. Again, all of this stuff in writing. Roof travel restraint systems using non-penetrating roof axle. A non-penetrating roof anchorage is one that secures onto a suitable component of the roof, but is not nailed, screwed, or bolted to the roof. So there are different systems out there in cases where a system and its components are assembled, installed, and used in a manner consistent with the manufacturer's instructions, specifications for their use, and in accordance with their intended use. Meaning that you cannot just go out and buy this stuff off that place that is named after a river online. All right? You have to actually go to the manufacturer, buy it, or if you buy it from that place that I mentioned, you have to have some type of real training with this. And this is where people fail, is they don't read the instruction manual. I know how to do this. This is the way it must go. They don't read the instruction manual, and then guess what happens? Bad things happen. The system may only be relied upon to provide fall protection while performing the work where the location and characteristics of the work is, and the roof slope, right, and won't dislodge, and the anchorage point. The roof slope is not more than the slope for which the system or its components are rated by the manufacturer. Again, get training on that equipment. Read the instruction manuals. Personal fall arrest systems. Let's see what's different here. This looks like all of the normal sub for general condition. Rooftop personal fall arrest systems are in Appendix B, right? A non-penetrating roof anchorage is one that secures onto a suitable component of the roof and is not nailed, screwed, or bolted to the component. In cases where a system or its components are assembled, installed, and used in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions and specifications for their use, and in accordance with their intended use, a competent person may assemble, install, or use the system or supervise the system's installation or use. Otherwise, the determination that the system is safe and appropriate to use as a personal fall arrest system under the circumstances at the site must be made by a qualified person. The system right? So you have to have, right? You read the instruction and a competent person installs, or a qualified individual has to go and make a call as to whether it's appropriate or not. The system may only be relied upon to provide fall protection while performing the work, where the location and characteristics of the work And the way the non-penetrating roof anchorage is installed will not dislodge the penetrating roof anchorage. Roof slope is not more than the slope for which the system or components are designed. Appendix C, non-exclusive list of covered tasks. Following is a non-exclusive list of covered tasks. These tasks are only covered by this agreement to the extent that they fall in. So everything that I mentioned here is only under these things related with chimney sweeping, insulation, remove and replace chimney covers or caps, waterproof or paint a chimney, repair chimney crowns, repair chimney chase, repair grouted and or mortared joints, replace chimney liners, replace broken or missing clay chimney liner tiles, replace broken missing masonry units, repair flashing, repair roof flue or mechanical exhaust vents, replace shingles. The term covered task includes any other similar chimney maintenance or repair tasks that do not constitute construction. In some situations, the only practical means of assessing, this is in against specialist access tasks. In some situations, the only practical means of assessing the top of the chimney to perform a cover task is by placing the feet of a portable ladder on the surface of the roof and leaning it against the chimney. In those situations, two types of ladders may be used. A straight portable ladder, lashed tightly against the chimney at two different heights, with both legs sitting firmly on the surface of the roof to provide firm support and prevent movement of the ladder. An appropriate rigid spacer may be used at the bottom between the ladder and the chimney to provide a slight incline that makes it easier to climb the ladder and descend it. Using foldable portable ladder with back legs lashed tightly against the chimney at two different heights and from both front legs sitting firmly on the surface of the roof, or a level platform designed for this purpose in order to provide firm support and prevent movement of the ladder. Right? A competent person must determine whether a chimney-based travel restraint system is required in addition to any other fall protection systems. And they give you a model template here along with this agreement here. So that's what I have here. What's the moral of the story? Moral of the story is by December 1st, 2024, that's 1 year from last Friday. That's 1 year from last Friday. You need to be in compliance with this agreement if you're a chimney, if you're under covered activities. Right? And that's essentially it. There's a whole bunch of other OSHA news we're going to save for the next broadcast. But what do you need to do? Essentially, what you need to do is assess, analyze, and act. 3 A's is safety. Assess what the hazards are, analyze what those hazards are, and act accordingly. Write your plans and everything else. We can help you there. 845-269-5772 or jim@safetywars.com. I hope this was a help. And again, I think I'm one of the first, if not the first people reporting on this. And that's what we're dedicated to. Bloomberg Law mentioned this. We're actually going into greater detail. I'm sure there's going to be other stuff out there. OSHA has some resources out there for this. Chimney sweeps here. Let's see what the OSHA website is. Can I pull it up? And not really. There's some case studies, but OSHA does have some stuff associated with chimney sweeps here, and all different types of accidents out there with that are associated with this work. And again, you're required as an employer to supply a safe and healthful workplace. So even if they didn't come out with a settlement, you have to supply that safe and healthful workplace. The other thing is this: any of this compliance with OSHA stuff does not actually exclude or mean that there is that you can use this as an excuse if someone dies. I was not following the OSHA regulations No, not really. You're still responsible if someone dies on your job from a fall. And as we know, 800 and some people in the construction industry die from falls every year. I'm sure we're going to have some follow-up to this and some comments like we normally do. Just want to thank everyone for bearing with me. We went through a very deep dive on this, and we're on this. We're on this with this. I'm now. Please share this to any chimney sweep companies that you know of with this, and inform them of this stuff. So for Safety Wars, this is Jim Posel. We're going to go right on through our conclusion, our outro. Isn't that what they call it, right? You have an intro, you got to have an outro. And we'll see you back here on your next Safety Wars program. Hold on.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.
And let's remember that tomorrow is Pearl Harbor.
You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and 1 consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete signal transmission trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, All 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.